Today we have a very interesting book, Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson, and this is a book I'm going to go through each chapter. Maybe I skip around, but there's a lot of really good stuff in this, and there's a lot of really interesting exercises, and essentially this book is all about breaking down your preconceived notions of life, breaking down all your bias, breaking down the things that you believe that are clouding your judgment, and to get beyond yourself, to get beyond your own perspective, and see things a little bit differently, because when you can unlock the doors of perception, as Blake said, you can be beholden to what the world truly is, which is infinite, as a great English poet wrote. Chapter 1, The Thinker and the Prover. All that we are is the result of all that we have thought. It is founded on thought. It is based on thought. Buddha, the Dhammapada. I know I said that wrong. William James, father of American psychology, tells us of a meeting an old lady who told him the earth rested on the back of a huge turtle. "But my dear lady," Professor James asked, as politely as possible, "what holds up the turtle?" "Ah," she said, "that's easy. He is standing on the back of another turtle." "Oh, I see," said Professor James, still being polite. "But would you be so good as to tell me what holds up the second turtle?" "It's no use, Professor," said the old lady, realizing he was trying to lead her into a logical trap. "It's turtles, 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 all the way." And I'm laughing at this, but I feel like we all know somebody who has this kind of view of the world, who has this irrational sense. And, more or less what this book is trying to throw into question is your irrational sense, your irrational bias, and the idea that the fact that we can know anything is false. We are kind of just observing things through, as Blake said, our tools of perception. And to be beholden to these limitations is to kind of just laugh at the world. And the more serious you take your view of the world, the more serious the world is. Whereas, as you can see, and as you will see, Robert Anton Wilson has a very funny humor as to how to approach truth, how to approach the world. Don't be too quick to laugh at this little old lady. All human minds work on a fundamentally similar principle. Her universe was a little bit weirder than most, but it was built upon the same mental principles as every other universe people have believed in. As Dr. Leonard Orr has noted, the human mind behaves as if it were divided into two parts, the thinker and the prover. The thinker can think about virtually anything. History shows that it can think the earth is suspended on the backs of infinite turtles. I laugh every time I read this. Or the earth is hollow, or the earth is floating in space. Comparative religion and philosophy show that the thinker can regard itself as mortal, as immortal, as both mortal and immortal, the reincarnation model in parentheses, or even non-existent in parentheses Buddhism. It can think itself into living in a Christian universe, a Marxist universe, a scientific relativistic universe, or Nazi universe, among many possibilities. Millions of people believe that, parentheses including the present author. As psychiatrists and psychologists have often observed, much to the chagrin of their medical colleagues, the thinker can think itself sick and can even think itself well again. The prover is a much simpler mechanism. It operates on one law only: whatever the thinker thinks, the prover proves. And what I just laid out to you was really the basic idea of this book, and really the basic idea of all of Robert Anton Wilson's writings. You could see this in James Joyce, you can see this in Jung, you could see this in Neville Goddard. There's really this idea in most great philosophy. This all goes back to the Platonic idea of forms, that the world is beyond our perception, but we can only define it through our organs of perception, such as our sight, our vision, our past experiences, our history. And this is really, really, really an important thing to understand, because it justifies different worldviews. It justifies different ways of seeing things. And, it's until we can admit our limitations, it's until we can admit that there are things that we can't quite know, that allow us to be open to other ideas, that allow us to not fall victim to doctrines, not fall victim to dogma, and really see the bigger picture, and not be so beholden to ideas, not be so beholden to belief systems, because belief systems are, you can abbreviate them as BS, as Robert Anton Wilson would say. And, there's some good in everything. There's some good in all sorts of ideas that are popular, but to be completely blinded and completely follow is to deny your own capacity for thought, your own capacity for rationality. I'm going to read a little bit more from the chapter and then go into the exercises, because I think the most interesting part about this book is that there's a lot of exercises that try to break your frame of mind, try to break you out of the way of your thinking. And perhaps these are the most interesting parts of the book, but Robert Anton Wilson throws a lot of stuff in these books, and it's really fun to go into. Let me just make sure I'm not skipping over anything. No, we'll just go straight into the exercise. Exercises. Sad as it is to say, you never understand anything by merely reading a book about it. That's why every science course includes laboratory experiments, and why every consciousness liberation movement demands practice of yogas, meditation, confrontation techniques, etc., in which the ideas are tested in a laboratory of your own nervous system. So these are really going to change the way that you see things, and it's purely to make you understand that what you want to see, you will see more of. What you focus your mind on, you will see more of. Think of somebody who sees the world in a Christian worldview. Every time something goes wrong, it's the work of the devil. Maybe you don't think from this frame of mind, and you're like, why can this happen? But that person sees the personification of evil as the devil. That everything that goes wrong is the devil's fault. So of course they're going to see facts that confirm this fiction. At least it's fiction in your mind. In their mind, it's reality. But understand that we all craft our own fiction. We all craft our own stories. We all have to explain away the things we don't understand in the world through means of our worldview. And it's very important to understand this, because you can understand where you fall short. You can understand where you fall victim to fanaticism and fall victim to other people's ideas and other people's propaganda. And, the only way to freedom is thinking for yourself. The only way to freedom is being yourself. And, I think there's a modern push to be so consumed in ideas, be so consumed in identities, be so consumed in political affiliations or religious affiliations or group affiliations in general, that the person loses their individualism. And I'm not saying there's not a need for any of these things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be part of any of these things. I'm just saying that if you live a life based off your own guiding principles, and if you live a life based off of your own internal compass, that's the way to find happiness. But if you live your life based off of other people's morality subjected onto you, it's going to be difficult to find yourself. It's going to be difficult to find fulfillment. And it's going to be very difficult to find any sense of peace on earth. To explore the thinker and the prover, try the following. Number 1, visualize a quarter vividly and imagine vividly that you are going to find the quarter on the street. Then look for the quarter every time you take a walk. Meanwhile, counting to visualize it. Oh, continue to visualize it. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. See how long it takes you to find the quarter. 2, explain the above experiment by the hypothesis of selective attention. That is, believe there are lots of lost quarters everywhere, and you are bound to find one by continually looking. Go looking for a second quarter. 3, explain the experiment by the alternative, quote-unquote, mystical hypothesis that, quote-unquote, mind controls everything. Believe that you made the quarter manifest in this universe. Go looking for a second quarter. Compare this time it takes to find the second quarter using the first hypothesis, parentheses, attention, with the time it takes to use the second hypothesis, parentheses, mind over matter. With your own ingenuity, invent similar experiments, and each time compare the two theories, parentheses, selective attention, coincidence versus quotations, mind controls everything, in parentheses, psychokinesis. Dude, there's so many things in this book that make it difficult to reread or read out loud. 6, avoid coming to any strong conclusions prematurely. At the end of a month, reread this chapter and think it over, and still postpone coming to any dogmatic conclusion. Believe it possible that you do not know everything yet, and that you might have something to still learn. So what Robert Anton Wilson in this exercise is really asking you to do is take a different world of view, take a different perspective, see things in a different manner, and see how it objectively changes your reality, see how it objectively changes your thought process. And, what makes Robert Anton Wilson so fascinating is that he was able to view the world from different people's perspectives, view the world and see how someone that believed a certain thing would believe, and see how they would act and understand them. Because you can't have compassion, you can't have empathy without understanding. That's something that Schopenhauer said, ironically. Schopenhauer, one of the most pessimistic people, said perhaps one of the most fascinating and greatest insights when it comes to being empathetic. And it's always so funny when I remember that. 7, convince yourself, if you're not already convinced, that you're ugly, unattractive, and dull. Go to a party in that frame of mind. observe how people treat you. If you've ever struggled with self-confidence, if you ever struggled with how people view you, this is how you go through it in your day-to-day life, and it's something that can be debilitating. It's something that can be very difficult to overcome, and it can be very limiting to you socially. But if you've ever gained confidence, if you've ever had a good day, or you're wearing your favorite outfit and things just seem to go right simply because you're just having a good day, that's this principle in action, and that's this principle that is clearly to be shown. And it's obviously a very easy example, but you can extrapolate this out onto a whole myriad of things. You could extrapolate this out to entire nations, to entire worldviews, to entire genres and times of history. Believe or convince yourself mean to do what an actor does, pretend until the pretenses begin to feel real, or as jazz musicians say, fake it until you make it. 8. Convince yourself if you are not already convinced that you are handsome, irresistible, and witty. Go to a party in that frame of mind, observe how people treat you. And, this is very much reminiscent of psycho-cybernetics, where if you just, in your mind, believe yourself to be something, you project through your body language, through your aura, through just the things that can't be perceived but are clearly evident in human interaction, that you're somebody that respects more or demands more respect, that they need to treat you a little bit nicer, that you have a magnetism, that there's something about you that is different and enticing and tantalizing, and just it's a whole nother reaction that you get from people when you're completely comfortable with yourself, when you're completely just, you don't take yourself too seriously, you have fun with things, and you're a happy-go-lucky person. And it's something that I've really come to grips with, that I used to struggle a lot with, as I said earlier. Like when I was much younger, I was a lot more insecure. I was a lot more, not just, I didn't believe I deserved to be in the room. I didn't believe that I deserved to be the center of attention. I didn't believe that I deserved to go into a crowd and tell a joke and just be myself. And because of that, I didn't get the same level of respect. I didn't get the same level of attention. I didn't feel that I really belong. But now it's just in any room I go into, I'm just myself, and there's just I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a different way that people treat you, and it's a different way that you go through life, and it's a much more fun way to go through life. 9. This is the hardest of all exercises and comes into 2 parts. First, observe closely and dispassionately 2 dear friends and 2 relative strangers. Try to figure out what their thinkers think and how their provers prove methodically. Set about proving it. Second, apply the same exercise to yourself. So this is something very easy to do. So like, I have friends that have very strong opinions about certain things, and it's very difficult to wrap your head around a worldview if you don't think from their perspective. But try to live through that person's experience. Try to see what they grew up with. Try to see their motivations. Try to see the things that they are consuming, the things that they are observing, the things that they speak to you about, the things that they notice about day-to-day conversations or their surroundings, and then understand how that justifies their world. Understand how that justifies and proves the things that they are thinking. And it's a very interesting thing to do, and it really breaks down the idea of personality, the idea of differences and duality. It's almost as Blake says, there's no difference between the rich man and the beggar. It's just a differentiation of ideas, a differentiation of consciousness, and it sort of gets into this Spinoza-esque monad, or this Emerson-esque oversoul. If you think you have learned the lessons of these exercises in less than 6 months, you haven't really been working at them. With real work in 6 months, you should be just at the beginning to realize how little you know about everything. Again, Robert Anton Wilson has a great appreciation for the Platonic idea of forms, and really you can break down this entire work to that sort of idea. 10. Believe it possible that you can float off the ground and fly by merely willing it. See what happens. If this exercise proves as disappointing to you as it has to me, try number 11 below, which is never disappointing. It's never a Robert Anton Wilson book or anything that he says in his interviews without some jokes thrown in here or there. Believe that you can exceed all your previous ambitions and hopes in areas in all. I read that so poorly. Believe that you can exceed all your previous ambitions and hopes in all areas of your life. And this is one that's essential, because I think if you get anything from Robert Anton Wilson, it's that he was an optimist about everything. And simply operating with the frame of mind that you have blessings is the surest way to have a good life, because regardless of the circumstances, you can always find good in it. Regardless of what's happening to you, you could always find something that's going right in your life. And the more time we can spend on that, the more time that we can just appreciate things. It's really easy to look at the things that are going wrong. We all have things going wrong, but it's also just as easy to find the things going right. And I feel that so many people focus on the negative. I feel that so many people are purely focusing on the things that they can't control, the things that are outside of their control, the things that, are just not ever going to be fixed. And the more you do that, the more you dwell in negativity, and you could spend just as much time in positivity. So with that said, it's the first chapter of Prometheus Rising. I have a whole lot of fun going back through this just now and sharing it to you guys. So I'm going to continue doing this. Stay tuned, and I'm very excited to continue working my way through this book. It's a very fun read, very interesting, and it has a whole lot of stuff in it. I really urge you to pick it up yourself. It's one of those works that I see myself coming back to and see myself constantly rethinking these ideas and recontextualizing them in all the new things that I learn and all the new things that I experience. So yeah, peace out. Catch you guys in the next one. Love you guys so much.